Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Living Room Podcast. Um, we have a lot to discuss this week. Um, NFL teams are back at camp. The MLB trade deadline is in earnest. There was some big news last night. But before we get into that, my name is Jack Angelo. I'm calling in from Orange, Connecticut, and my tag team partner out on the West Coast is Speakeasy Steve. Good morning, Steve.
Good morning, Jack. So it's the beast of the East and the best of the West. Nice to
That's
be in the
apparently
analyst
what we're
chair
doing.
here. I appreciate you sitting in the host chair today, giving me a chance to sprout off a little bit more.
Absolutely. I see you're wearing your California t-shirt, whatever that, you know.
Jelly Belly Factory up in Fairfield, California, when I went wine tasting in Napa for the first time last year, and I found out in the very hotel I was staying at a couple miles away was the Jelly Belly Factory. So I went on the tour and bought this T-shirt, for the memory of being there. It was a great place.
Very good. Very good. Well, the trade deadline really began in earnest, around 11 o'clock midnight Eastern last night with the trade of Tarik Skubal to the Dodgers. We kind of are going to shapeshift a little bit today as, with that news happening and where he ended up going, it brings up a larger existential question about the future of baseball, at least the immediate future of baseball. So we'll start with Scooble to the Dodgers. A lot of people saw this coming. A lot of people were underwhelmed in what the Tigers got in return. What are your initial thoughts of Scooble to the Dodgers? As that is certainly the big domino to fall so far.
The rich keep getting richer. Let's face it. I mean, did the Dodgers need him? Probably not, but it's better to have maybe too much pitching than not enough. So you add Screwball to a rotation that includes Yoshinobu Yamamoto. You have Shohei Ohtani, the awesome two-way player and the perennial MVP of the league, just because he does pitching and hitting and does both very, very well when he's healthy enough. You even have Blake Snell in there, and he's about to come back if he's not back already. And Tyler Glasnow, I've always liked as a pitcher from his Tampa Bay days, but he's a guy who's made of glass. That's probably why you want to bring in a guy like Screwball in case Glasnow is not able to, pitch in the playoffs or gets hurt again potentially. Justin Robleski, has had a big year for the Dodgers. I don't know if he was a part of that trade or not. I don't look at what the Tigers actually got back. I guess I was more focused on the fact that the Dodgers just added another star, another arm in their attempt to be the first team to three-peat as World Series champions since our Yankees in 98, 99 of 2000. As you may recall, the Dodgers are trying to be the first team to do that in 26 years since the Yankees took out the Mets in the 2000 World Series. It's just the rich keep getting richer. And honestly, I don't know what Detroit is doing down there. They hired a great manager in AJ Finch, who won a championship with the Houston Astros. They signed Framber Valdez, who AJ Hinch knew from his Houston days. And he's a really good pitcher. You got a guy like Casey Mize, and Tarik Skubal didn't want to leave. He didn't formally request to be traded, wanted to stay in Detroit, it looked like. And I know a lot of people will say players want to, they'll say, well, of course I want to stay. And then when they leave, well, I wanted to stay, but it didn't quite work out. But I really believe that he wanted to stay. I don't think Tarik Skubal is a guy that needs to play in a big market. I don't get that vibe about him, to be honest with you. But he's in a big market now, the second biggest market in Major League Baseball, and he's got a chance to win a championship and then approach free agency and probably become the latest highest paid pitcher, maybe possibly getting more money than Yamamoto got or Garrett Cole the Yankees got when he hits free agency. He's younger and he's going to get a huge payday. So it's a great opportunity for him. The Dodgers keep getting richer, and the Detroit Tigers, you have to wonder what they're doing. Are they going to a full rebuild? Because Casey Mize might be on the move. They made him available when they scratched him from his scheduled start the other day. So you got to wonder if he's going to move before the trade deadline comes and goes on Monday. So it's good times in LA for the Dodgers, and it's confusing times for the Tigers in Detroit.
Well, there's a lot of hate around the MLB community for the Dodgers, but what the Dodgers are doing is not against the rules. They are
True.
playing within the rules as they are
Yes.
currently constituted. The problem for the Dodgers is a lot of those rules are going to get changed, and it's
Will they
going to
actually?
end up biting the Dodgers in the ass. Um,
Sooner or later the bill's going to come.
well, not only is the bill going to come, I honestly think that, well, we'll get into what we think later. A lot of people have said that the return for Skubal, who is only a 2 month rental, so let's put that in perspective.
Sure.
He's not controllable. He can sign anywhere he wants next year. I don't think there's going to be a next year, and I think that's why the Dodgers did what they did. Um,
Yeah, they are all in. They are,
yeah,
it's like the Rams with F them picks. The Dodgers saying F the future. We're all in right now. We're trying to make history here.
yeah, but,
It's hard to blame them, by
but
the way,
the
for that
Dodgers,
mentality. As a fan, you got to love that type of thing.
well, you do, but they're playing within the rules. And what surprises me, the Dodgers traded two pitchers. One is a 28-year-old journeyman who stinks. Um, the other one can't even is 0-7 with almost a 5 ERA and low A ball. And then the outfielder is supposedly pretty good. But that's all that Detroit got back. My question is for other teams, whether you want to talk about, I'm going to keep the Yankees out of it because I don't think the Yankees need Tarik Skubal. Would he be a great addition? Sure, but they have bigger fish to fry than their starting rotation. Even though they lost last night, Fried pitched a great game. Um, Gave up one run that he allowed on a wild pitch. But anyway, I digress. Um, why is it do you think, given the apparent lack of return that Detroit got from the Dodgers. I mean, they could have executed that trade at 3:59 tomorrow afternoon, butting up against the deadline. Where are all these other teams that didn't step up and make a better offer? Specifically, Milwaukee, Tampa. Where are all these teams? I mean, Scubal's only got $9 million coming to him this year, so he wasn't going to break the bank.
No.
So, what does that say about the other teams in baseball?
Well, that's an interesting question. In that the Dodgers, coming into this, had nine of the top 100 prospects. So the expectation was that if the Dodgers acquired Tarik Skubal, they would have to give up a couple of those top nine prospects for him, but they only gave up one ultimately. And then the other two, you wonder about, or what the Dodgers see in them that no other team saw. So, or the Tigers saw in them what no other team saw. So we'll see about that. So honestly, as a general manager, you've got to get on the phone and you have to gauge this stuff and you have to try to read between the lines. You got to understand that what the Dodgers want, the Dodgers will generally get, and you've got to compete with them at that particular level. It could be Milwaukee did not have the prospects to offer the Tigers what they thought the Tigers might have wanted for Tui Skubal. Also, I think the Brewers need to focus more on offense, to be honest with you. I think offensively right now, they're not quite good enough. If you'd be added Tarik Skubal to your rotation, I'm not sure they beat the Dodgers anyways in a division series or a league championship series, because I'm not sure they're good enough hitting wise, like the Braves in the 90s with all that pitching won World Series because they couldn't get the hits or the timely hitting that you have to have in the postseason. So maybe Milwaukee looked at it from that point of view, but maybe they assumed that they didn't have the prospects, or they
Milwaukee's
assumed
got a
that
great farm
the
system.
Tigers will want prospects that they didn't have. And the Dodgers ultimately got Tarik Skubal relatively cheaply, and Milwaukee basically got outplayed. So it could be the assumption that we just don't have what they're going to want, or they want to focus more on the offense, figuring that Jacob Mizorowski, who might win a Cy Young this year, and what they have pitching wise, and they have a lot of pitching, and they're a very good pitching team, might be enough if they could upgrade the offense and bolster the offense for a postseason run.
Let me read you a quote, a tweet actually from Ben Verlander. Yes, he's Justin Verlander's, I think, his brother, but he's all over Twitter. He posts a lot about baseball. Clearly I don't know if you want to call him an insider. Um, I'm quoting Ben Verlander what he posted an hour ago, and I'll get your reaction to it. Here's what I don't get about the Tigers trading Tarik Skubal. From what we had been hearing, the Tigers hadn't started calling teams on Skubal yet as of Saturday morning. Did they accept the first offer they got? If this was available Saturday night, I promise you the Dodgers would have still offered this on Monday. Why now? Someone tell me one possible good reason not to keep making calls and gaining leverage until as late as possible. I get he's a rental. It's honestly less about the specific package and more about the fact that I do think they could have done better simply by, quote, making more calls. Your reaction to how the Detroit Tigers, we'll take the Dodgers out of this, your reaction to a Detroit Tigers front office and owner, Mike Ilitch, who have really, I mean, I don't know if this is as dopey as the Luka Doncic trade, um, but your reaction to what Ben Verlander had to say.
Well, that's the first thing I think of, actually, is the Luka Doncic trade, where Nico Harrison, the former general manager of the Dallas Mavericks, did not call around to see who might be interested in acquiring Luka Doncic, or maybe general managers didn't call to see if Luka Doncic was available. Although I think most general managers would say, well, why would Dallas make Luka Doncic available? And that's what it sounds like to me. It sounds like that maybe they were intent on getting what the Dodgers had, noting that the Dodgers probably have the best minor league system in baseball right now, and you could put Tampa up there as well. But the Dodgers might have the best, in terms of young talent. Again, they had 9 of the top 100 prospects in their particular farm of players. So Milwaukee probably decided, if we're going to trade him, we're going to trade him to the Dodgers, because no matter who we get in return, it's probably going to be a pretty good return, because it's the Dodgers. This is what they do. They not only sign stars, but they develop players, and then they can bring players in who need to be fixed, and they can fix guys, pitchers especially, and then maybe send them elsewhere. So it's one of those things where Milwaukee might have decided that it's going to be the Dodgers that
Detroit.
trade them, because who we get in return is probably going to be pretty good. They did get one of
Detroit,
the
not
top
Milwaukee.
9 prospects. The other two guys we'll see. But the Dodgers have a sterling reputation as far as being able to develop players, bring them up at the right time for them to have an immediate impact, like Greg Jeffries with the Mets way back when they brought him up and he blew up right away. The Dodgers had the ability to bring players up like that who will have an immediate impact. So maybe Milwaukee decided
Detroit.
that no matter what, it's the Dodgers, but it's very reminiscent of the Luka Doncic trade with Nico Harrison and the Mavericks, who basically only offered him to one team as opposed to shopping around. You would think they would do that. And even though you might have an opinion about something, that's not necessarily a fact. You got to know for sure that what you're going to get back is going to be effective, regardless of the team that they come from, because every team is different, every culture is different, and what the Dodgers have, the Brewers don't necessarily have, or the Tigers don't necessarily have. So if I were them, I would have shopped around a little bit more to get the best possible offer. It's a great point by Ben Verlander, as far as if they didn't start fielding calls on Saturday, they might have taken the first offer, which means they were engaged more in a negotiation with the Dodgers, more so than trying to leverage trade partners against them to get the best deal possible.
Yeah, I mean it's interesting, in the off season when the Yankees, kicked the tires on Skubal, I believe the asking price was Cam Schlittler, Ben Rice, and George Lombard Jr., who was their top prospect.
Now that would be a heck of a haul.
Well, that's just it.
Oh,
That's a significantly more than they got from the Dodgers.
yes.
And I'll put out a cautionary tale because if you go back and look over since Alex Verdugo in 2019, the number one, and we're going to take Sasaki out in 2025 because he was never a prospect. Um, the Dodgers' number one overall prospects have largely stunk and not panned out. That's not to say that their farm system isn't good, but it's a cautionary tale to read too much into these MLB prospect rankings. It's just like ranking quarterback classes. It's a lot of guesswork. It's and a lot of times it doesn't pan out. You don't know where. I mean, look at the Yankees, for example. Cam Schlittler wasn't anybody's top prospect. Look what he's turned into. But I
Jason
digress.
Dominguez, Anthony Volpe. I'll give you an even
God,
better name.
Anthony
Remember
Volpe's
Gary
turned out to be
Sanchez? When
garbage.
Gary Sanchez and Aaron Judge came up, Gary Sanchez was going to be a can't miss. And Aaron Judge,
Jason
who is this
Dominguez.
guy?
He's an awful
And Aaron
fielder.
Judge is a multi-time MVP, maybe the best hitter in baseball. And Gary Sanchez, I don't know where he went to Minnesota. I'm not sure where he is now, but you're absolutely right about the prospect and draft system of Major League Baseball, like the draft system of the NFL, is an absolute crapshoot, and you just don't know how these guys are going to pan out because there's two sides to every story. You can't guarantee a prospect is going to be successful anywhere, in any sport, because at the end of the day, you can't have good without bad. You can't have a draft hit without a draft bust, and
Yep.
ultimately it is guesswork. So you're absolutely right about that. That's why you want to get the best package possible, because if you get three or four good players and one or two of those pan out, that's a pretty good percentage of players that do pan out, the ones you might acquire, because not all of them are going to hit, but if some of them hit, then the misses are a little bit more tolerable.
I have let's switch to the future of baseball. The immediate future of the immediate future of baseball. I'm going to ask you a question. Did the Dodgers and the Tigers last night just ensure we do not have a 2027 baseball season?
It depends on who you talk to. There's a lot of some people feel like, and there are some eternal optimists in the media. I hear a couple of guys in LA have a radio show that I listen to on ESPN Radio think that there's not going to be a lockout, that they'll figure it out, that things are so great in baseball right
What are
now.
they drinking out in Los Angeles? There's not going to be a lockout.
I
I I'll bet you $1,000 right now there's a lockout.
I would, and I hate this phrase, erring on the side of caution, because it's still committing an error. But if you're going to err, you're going to err on the side of caution. And I would fully expect a lockout next year, because there is a chasm, a developing chasm between small market teams and big market teams. I think the small market teams kind of do this of themselves. Detroit has conducted themselves like a small market team. The Yankees, yesterday, traded Camilo Duval to the Pirates for two prospects,
Well,
and
I was
so
glad to get rid of
so that's kind
Duval.
of a small market move as well. And the Yankees and Pittsburgh trade with each other seemingly every
Yep.
season. They'll talk about a small market, big market relationship, but I would expect a lockout, and I don't expect a salary cap. I don't think the players are going to go for that, but I would expect maybe something similar to the NBA in terms of aprons, luxury tax, thresholds that might get increased. But a lot of guys think that there won't be a lockout because baseball's going so well right now, with more action, more offense, bigger bases. They removed the shift, which I was happy about. I hated the shift. But it depends on who you talk to. But I fully expect a lockout, and I fully expect that there won't be a salary cap, but there will be versions of that phrased differently to give small market teams a chance. But here's the thing: if you're a small market team and you get the changes that you want short of a salary cap, you better step up. It's as simple as that. I
Well,
think they should implement a
that's just
salary
it.
floor.
You know,
A salary floor. The minimum team should spend is probably about $80 million. Is the figure I have
it
in my,
needs to be higher than that.
or a
Here,
hundred
here,
or
here,
100 million.
here's the
But there's going to be a lockout. It's just a matter of whether it be protracted or whether it will end quickly. But knowing Major League Baseball and the owners, they're going to go at each other for a while, and hopefully we don't miss the World Series this next year like we did in '94.
yeah. I'm going to take another path. I don't think there's going to be a 2020 season at all. I
Mm-hmm.
think it's done. I think it's over. You're right that the players are staunchly against a salary cap. Here's the problem with the apron stuff and all that stuff. It doesn't compel teams to spend the money they're receiving via revenue sharing, the luxury tax. Um, they are not going to be able to implement a minimum salary floor without implementing a salary cap. You can't have one. You have to feed both sides of the equation. And part of the problem is, yes, the big market teams spend more money. Um, but just as big of a problem, the small market teams pocket all this revenue sharing money and they're not spending it on the field.
Mm-hmm.
And therein lies the rub. Um, I don't think in I don't think there's going to be a baseball season next year. I do think there's going to be a salary cap because I think enough owners are entrenched. You can tell me, well, the players have a slush fund, this and that. It's not going to carry that. I don't care unless it's in the billions of dollars, which it's not. A lot of the rank and file players come maybe mid-season are going to have a lot tougher time voting no to the salary cap than some of the top 10% of players. Um, their war
Do you
chest.
think there's going to be a salary cap ultimately?
Yes, I do.
Wow.
Oh, yes. I do think there's going to be a salary cap, and I think a lot of rule changes are going to come around. Number one, I think there's going to be a salary cap. I think there's also going to be a salary floor, because that's part of we talk about the teams that do spend money. We don't talk
What's
enough about the
interesting
teams
about that?
that don't spend money.
You know what's
Um,
interesting about that? If I could interject,
Go ahead.
are the Dodgers' current operations a huge motivation for the lockout we're about to be in?
I think the Dodgers are the face of what many perceive
Okay,
as the ills of baseball.
let's just say that there are players on other teams and owners, obviously, that feel what the Dodgers are doing, even though they're playing within the rules, is not quite fair. Putting in a salary cap is the solution to that problem. So that's really a bit. I'll put it to you this way: if you go through this whole harangue, protracted harangue of a lockout, and you don't have a salary cap, but you're saying the Dodgers this, the Dodgers that, this, that, and the other thing, you can't have it both ways. You know me, I'm a straight shooter. I'm going to tell it like it is.
Yep.
You want to stop the Dodgers. That salary cap makes it fair for everybody. By everybody, I mean if there's 30 teams in the league, 30 teams always have a chance. And having a chance is inherent by the virtue of the opportunity you have to play 162 games every single year. So can we see it for what it is? But if you're going to see this for what it is, if teams, players, and owners have qualms with what the Dodgers are doing, that salary cap is the perfect solution for that. So I think you might be right about that. But if there's no salary cap and we get much the same thing after this whole thing ends, then it's a whole lot of talk and not a lot of backing it up. And as a baseball, my baseball fandom has kind of faded over the years, to be honest with you, because I'm sick and tired of the fact that the game often gets overshadowed by all the BS that we hear. This is a chance for the owners and the players to show, you know what, we are serious about this. And if they're serious, the salary cap is exactly what's going to happen. If in fact that they have huge qualms with what the Dodgers are doing, which I feel like is the case. So we'll see if they follow through on that.
My qualms with what the Dodgers are doing is not so much what they're doing in terms of spending money, even though their owner and your Lakers owner, Mark Walter, is under fire, not necessarily for the Lakers and Dodgers operations, but he's got problems with the SEC. So,
Well,
Mark,
I doubt that's going to have much of an effect on the Dodgers and the Lakers.
well,
I from reading up on that, I don't think much is going to come from that. Maybe a slap on the
here,
wrist and this and
here,
that, but
here is
I doubt it's
here
going to
is
affect the
where
operation of the Dodgers and the Lakers. To be honest
here
with
is where Major League Baseball is its own worst enemy.
you. Mhm.
Allowing the Dodgers, or anybody for that matter, to defer salary and not have it count against the cap. If you want to defer salary as a way of managing your payroll, that's fine. But those salaries need to count against the cap. If Otani is counting what, $2 million against the cap? No, he has a 10-year contract. So Otani's hit on a yearly basis should be $70
70
million
million.
dollars
But
against the
there's
cap.
no cap. That's why. Do you
Well,
think the
that's why
Dodgers
there
would do
will be a
this if there
cap.
was a cap?
That's why that's I think the days of the deferring Dodgers are over after this year, which is I think why they made a play for Skubal, because I think, like you said at the very beginning, the Dodgers are going to go, you know, this is their window. After this, the Dodgers are going to end up paying the biggest price of any team once the dust settles. Because I do think there's going to be a salary cap. I think all that deferred money, while they'll let them defer the money, the cap or the luxury tax implications are going to massively change. As it is right now, the Dodgers this year are going to be paying almost $200 million in luxury tax. What we don't know is where that money is going, which is why the second apron idea for me doesn't make any sense. These other teams that are taking this money are
Well,
not inclined to spend it on the
I
field.
felt there would be a I felt there would be a like something similar to what the NBA is doing, or maybe a salary cap, but they call it something different than a salary cap, clever language play, word play, and things of that nature. But you might be right about that. And as you were going through your reasoning for it, that's when I thought about the league versus the Dodgers, because that's
Yep.
a huge issue coming into this. Therefore, you're going to have to resolve it one way or the other, and it's going to involve maybe doing something that the players don't want, that the owners want badly. But ultimately, it's about being able to compete, and that's the best way to compete.
Since the Dodgers are the talk of baseball right now, I'm going to say something, and I've said this before. I said this before the season. I don't think that not only I don't think the Dodgers are winning the World Series, I don't think the Dodgers come out of the National League. Your thoughts?
Who's going to be the team then?
I think it
I
could be. I think it could be Philly. I think it could be Milwaukee. I think it
Show
could be
me a
Atlanta.
Philly team that could get through. Philly's had a very talented team for years. In some cases, as talented as the Dodgers, and they got Christopher Sanchez, who's a Cy Young candidate. I
Well, Mizorowski's going to win the Cy Young in the NL. I mean, that's that
Well,
that that ship is sailed.
the point is that the Phillies have a roster to do so. But Bryce Harper has to do it in the postseason, which he hasn't always done. And some way, somehow, Philly always finds a way to squander an opportunity. They're kind of like the Padres in that they have all this talent, but they can't seem to put it together on the field. Atlanta could do it. I could see Atlanta doing it if Ronald Acuna Jr. is healthy. Spencer Strider, the pitcher, like they have enough talent to do there. So if it's not the Dodgers, I would guess Atlanta would be the team coming out of the National League East. I think they're the second best team in the National League behind the Dodgers. So, but I've gotta with the acquisition of Skubal and some of the guys are going to get back from injury and a loaded line. I think they're going to get Will Smith back from the neck injury. That's going to help. And Dalton Rushing has done a decent job of filling in for where Will Smith at this particular point. The Dodgers will be rested. They know what it takes. They're hungry. They're going forward here with the Tarik Skubal trade. So I've got to pick the Dodgers out of the National League. But if they don't, my guess is it would be Atlanta because I just don't trust Philly. But Atlanta's at least done it, in this decade in terms of winning a World Series, and they could potentially do it again.
Well, my pick out of the National League before the year started was Philly, and I'm going to stick with Philly. I
Fair
think
enough.
this is the year they get it done. Um, I don't want to delve too much more into the trade deadline because a lot of moves haven't happened yet. A lot of dominoes haven't fallen. So
Mm-hmm.
maybe when we reconvene in 2 weeks, we can do a post mortem on the trade deadline
Who won? Who
and
lost? Yeah.
who won, who lost, and who really enhanced their chances in the postseason. Quick Yankee note before we move on to the National Football League: Yankees need bats. They got their bullpen's overworked. They have a terrific starting staff, but now with Judge Stanton's been out since April. Judge has been out since May. Now
Yeah.
Bellinger's down for 4 to 6 weeks with a hammy. They don't have enough bats.
They're
They
not
don't have a
calling up
third
George
baseman.
Lombard Jr.
Um, Honestly, if I
Substitute
never
Anthony
see
Volpe
Jazz
as
Chisholm
shortstop.
play for the Yankees again, it'll be a blessing. Um, Aside from first base with Ben Rice, I wouldn't mind seeing a completely new infield with the Yankees. They don't have a catcher. Trent Grisham's got to go. They don't hit. They don't hit. And I don't know when or even if Stanton and Judge and Bellinger are coming back this year. I think Bellinger will, but it's been such cloak and dagger with. I mean, Stanton strained, had a calf strain. He's been out for 4 months with a calf strain. I mean, that's crazy. He's a professional
Because a
athlete.
calf strain could advance to an Achilles heel, and then what do you do? I think the Yankees' thinking on that, not that I agree, is that a calf strain could potentially yield to a Achilles heel rupture, and that will put Stan down for a year and a half at least with his injury history. And they got him on the books for a couple more years. So I think they're saving him for the
Well,
postseason,
they have him
figuring
on
that
the
if he's
books.
going to go down, let him go down at the time of the year where we're going to need him anyways. And then we'll go from there. But I think they're protected from an Achilles heel rupture entirely because the calf strain could give way to that. So they figure let's bring it back when it matters most. and keep our fingers crossed he'll stay out there and can do what he's done in the postseason for the Yankees in the past.
Well, they only have him under contract for this year and next year. I don't
Right.
think there's going to be a next year. In 2028, they have a $10 million club option that Miami would have. Excuse me. There's a $25 million club option or a $10 million buyout, which the Marlins would have to pay all of. So this year and next year is the last you'll see of Giancarlo Stanton in the Bronx. I'm sure he'll pick up somewhere else for a much, 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 much lower deal.
Team friendlier
So,
deal. Yeah.
so we'll tie the bow
Yeah,
on the MLB
I
trade
think
deadline after it
I think
happens.
Carlos Stanton's days with the Bronx are absolutely numbered, but as well as Trent Grisham. And how soon are the Yankees brass going to realize that Anthony Volpe and Jason Dominguez are just not going to be the players that you want them to be? Maybe bring up Lombard. Obviously, Ryan McMahon at third base is an issue, and we know what the deal is with Austin Wells. So the Yankees should address that at the trade deadline with Jeffers or Abby Rossman from boy. Baltimore was willing to trade Rossman to the Yankees. That would be huge, actually. Getting someone from a division rival like that. He's a really, really good player, but an all-star a couple of times. So I sure as heck hope that the Yankees can pull that move to bring in Rossman, if not Jeffers, from Minnesota, and then go get them a shortstop. And you mentioned Mason Miller in our group text is all but locked into the Yankees by way of a trade. That'll be a quality acquisition. But no matter what the Yankees do with pitching, it's not going to mean anything until the hitting gets going. There are so many games the Yankees play. They've scored 4 total runs in the series with the Cubs. They won 2-0 in the first game, lost 5-2 yesterday. But so many games where they can't put up a single run in the first 3 innings. With the pitching they have and the starting rotation, the bullpen, if you could get early offense, gives them a huge advantage in an American League that is up for grabs right now by a lot of different teams. It's known as exactly running away with it. So it's all about bats, better catcher, better shortstop, maybe a third baseman, and yeah, get Mason Miller. That's all very well and good, but they got to get the bats, and they got to be more realistic and honest about the Anthony Volpes and Jason Dominguez's of the world, because I just don't think those guys are going to pan out to what the Yankees think they can be, but ultimately will not become.
All right. Well, we're going to transition into the National Football League, and some news coming out. I was going to save San Francisco till last, but some positive and negative news coming out about the wide receiver room in San Francisco very recently. But before we get to that, what's with the cloak and dagger stuff about the Kyle Shanahan auto accident? I've seen or read things that said this accident happened 2 weeks before anybody even knew about it.
11
What the
days.
hell's
Yeah,
going on out there?
I asked about that last week on the pod.
You know,
And I feel like maybe they were hoping that he would come back well enough, but then he shows up to training camp. He doesn't look so well. A media member spot said the Niners now, okay, we got to issue a public statement. That's my guess, that he was spotted and didn't look right. Questions started to fly. And then I said, okay, we got to put out a public statement on that. I think the Niners are trying to keep that hush hush because people judge everything. And I hope Kyle Shanahan is okay. I hope the woman that he hit is okay, but it's got nothing to do with the football team per se. But, of course, the media wants the stories and everything is sensationalized. So I think the Niners were hoping that they could kind of keep that under wraps because it's not really related to the football team per se, except Kyle Shanahan works for the 49ers. But he shows up, doesn't look right. Questions start to fly. The Niners make a public statement to save face, and here we are. And then all these other subsequent reports come out. It's also the time of the year where, we're looking for content and we're looking for things to talk about. This is an interesting thing to talk about, obviously. With Kyle Shanahan, the Niners, they're a very well-covered team, obviously, based on the success that they've had under Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch. So hopefully everything is okay. My only concern is that Kyle Shanahan will be able to be at his best, be healthy, get over the concussion, get over the broken nose, and the ribs, and ultimately, being able to prepare this Niners for what is going to be a very challenging season, to say the least. And obviously dealing with some of the wide receiver issues that the Niners
well,
are
that's
dealing
where I
with
want to go
right now.
next.
So,
Pearsall
so
is
that's what
done
I
for the
think
year.
happened though with Shanahan and the late reporting on this.
Well, let's get it. I guess we'll start with the NFC West and we'll start with the San Francisco 49ers since we're here already. Pearsall came out yesterday, is done for the year. The PCL. He will have surgery in a couple of weeks.
So the
Meanwhile, Deebo
worst.
Samuel comes full circle and he's now back in Santa Clara. Your thoughts on the San Francisco wide receiver situation?
Well, Deebo Samuel knows the offense. And I think coming back here is going to. He didn't have a very good time in Washington. I think when you consider what's going on with Ricky Pearsall and Brandon Ayuk, bringing back Deebo Samuel as a short-term stopgap is not a bad idea. I'm worried about the age of the 49ers. 49ers wide receiver core. And in my mind, DeZhaun Stribling, the Niners' very first pick of the 2026 draft, is on the clock. No pun intended, as far as I hope he develops into a player right away, because the Niners could use some youthful exuberance and youthful athleticism at the receiver position. And DeZhaun Stribling is going to be the guy that's going to have to, fill that void, because that was what Ricky Pearsall was supposed to do in place of Deebo Samuel. So we'll see how quickly Stribling develops. But I think as far as a short-term stopgap, who better than Deebo Samuel? He knows the offense. He could have an impact. He's a home run hitter. Every time he touches the ball, he could potentially score. They could utilize him in a lot of different ways as a running back, as a wide receiver as well, on draws, on screens, and on end arounds and things of that nature. So he's the versatile player that Kyle Shanahan likes to have in his offense. So I agree with the short term move, but my long term concern with the Niners is that where is the youth that this team needs? Because a little bit older now, we have youth in our secondary on the defense, but the receiving room with Mike Evans, Christian Kirk, and Christian Kirk has some injury concerns. Brandon
Yep.
Ayuk's situation deteriorating. You bring back Deebo Samuel. George Kittle isn't getting any younger. So I'd like to see some more youth there. But as far as bringing in Deebo Samuel for Ricky Pearsall, no issue with it. He knows the offense, he knows the team, and he might be glad to be back after not such a positive experience with the Commanders.
So let's wrap up San Francisco. Before we move on to the San Francisco defense, give me your thoughts on the San Francisco offensive line. We've covered well, we don't
That's
have to
the
cover the
big
quarterback
thing.
and
I
Spurs.
wanted him to address that in the draft with Caleb Lemieux or guys like that. They didn't do it. That's the big. I mean, Troy Williams is back, but he's not getting any younger. But he's back. He's healthy. If he stays healthy, he's the best left tackle in the league. But that's going to be, that's going to, Cole McKivitz on the other side is decent, but not always great. And then you have all the guys in the middle. We'll see if, what's his name? The left guard, the guard that they drafted a couple of years ago. Simone, can I forget? Pooney. If he was great as a rookie, not such a great year last year. He was okay, not as good as he was in his rookie year. But if he can return to the form he was in his rookie year, he'll be a very good interior lineman for the Niners. And then you look at the center and the left guard position for the Niners. It's a unit that is good, not great. But the Rams have their own offensive line issues right now with
Well,
Alaric
we'll get to the
Jackson, what
Rams.
he's going through. We'll get into that. So, do the Niners have the worst offensive line in the division? No, I don't think so. But is it good enough to get through the NFC and win a Super Bowl? We'll see. It's got good players, but it's got to come together and be much improved. Because one of the biggest reasons why the Niners haven't been able to get it done in their two previous Super Bowls is that the offensive line at times was not able to get the job done, putting quarterbacks under pressure to make plays. And ultimately, Christian McCaffrey is what this offense is going to revolve around. So between the line and McCaffrey's ability to stay healthy and impactful, that will maybe determine more than anything else how far the Niners go this season. But I'll see how the offensive line comes together. It's a good line, but it needs to be better than good
Yep.
if they're going to get through the NFC.
What about their defense? Front seven specifically. You already indicated that their secondary is young. What about their front seven?
Fred Warner's back. Dre Greenlaw's back. Mind you, those guys are getting any older, and I like what Tatum Bethune did for the Niners last year, number 48. So I think they're strong in linebacker. You're going to have Nick Bosa be Nick Bosa again. He was the defensive player of the year 3 years ago. He has been off injured ever since, a little bit like his brother. Um, throughout his entire career, Joey Bosa. And the Niners still may bring him in. I'd love for the Niners to trade for Max Crosby. I don't know if they've looked into that yet or kicked the tires on that with the Raiders, but I'd love to trade for Max Crosby to answer what the Rams did, traded for Myles Garrett. But really, Nick Bosa's ability to get to the quarterback, Raheem Morris coming in as defensive coordinator, is going to come up with some different blitz schemes that I think are going to enliven the Niners. But ultimately, Warner has to stay healthy. Greenlaw is going to be an animal all over the field. Hopefully, he's healthy. He's very good at defending tight ends. You saw what he did against Travis Kelce in the Niners' last Super Bowl appearance before he went down with that Achilles injury, and then Kelce had a big second half. It wasn't a coincidence, so I think he's an impact player. But Bosa, really, the Niners' ability to get to the quarterback and put on consistent pressure is going to be the key to determining if the Niners' defense is what they've been for the most part under Kyle Shanahan since he got in, and how Raheem Morris maybe recodes the defense a little bit to bring that aggressive pass rush that the Niners feed off of, so that they know that their defense is playing the way they're capable of, and it really stimulates and excites the team when they're playing the way they're capable of. And Bosa is going to be a huge part of that.
All right, let's move on in the West. Let's start at the bottom. Let's go with the Arizona Cardinals. What are we looking for from Arizona this year? With the addition of Jordan Love, their quarterback situation is Jacoby Brissett and maybe
Beck.
Carson Beck. Does Marvin Harrison finally put it together? Is he an
That's
overdrafted
the
bust?
question. Yeah, no, can they get Marvin Harrison on track? And who's going to be the quarterback? Who's going to be the quarterback in the future? But to me, going through the question segment, can the Arizona Cardinals get Marvin Harrison Jr. on track to fulfill the massive potential that he has? They say he's better than his father, who was a Hall of Fame wide receiver. So that is a big question. Will Marvin Harrison Jr. finally put it together and be the receiver that he should be in the NFL?
Well, the big question, at least through his first couple years in the league, is can Marvin Harrison Jr. get separation? You know, that's the real question. And I guess it all starts with Arizona up front. It starts with everybody up front. Um, is the Arizona Cardinals offensive line, adequate enough so Jordan Love doesn't become this year's Ashton Genty?
Jeremiah Love, yeah,
Jeremiah Love, not Jordan Love.
yeah,
Jeremiah Love. Jordan Love is the quarterback for the Green Bay.
Green Bay Packers, yes.
But Jeremiah Love is not this year's Austin. Now, granted, he's a much bigger man than Genty is, but do they have enough up front? They did come out of the draft with Bisiantis, the guard out of Texas A&M. So that was a good pickup for them. I
Yeah,
think he would have been a
besides
good pickup for
I
your
was hoping the
Niners.
Niners would get as an interior lineman. At the end of the first round, the Niners could have had him, but he went to the Cardinals instead. So I think that will help the interior part of the offensive line and give more protection to the quarterback, whoever that might be, up front in the pocket. But better not burn out Jeremiah Love in his first season. That's for sure. You don't want to use them too much, so they'll need a passing game over there. And obviously, Marvin Harrison Jr. is going to have to be a big part of that. If not, you're going to use Jeremiah Love. You're going to burn him out early, and it's going to be the old, the running back that ages very, very quickly, which is not fair to him because Jeremiah Love has the chance to be a very impactful player. He's great running. He's great receiving. He's great in blocking, and he's got all the tools. There's nothing you can't do on the football field. You can probably put him on defense. He'd be a good defensive player as well. So you better not burn him out too early and try to have the most balanced offensive attack that you can.
Well, they do have LaFleur. He's an offensive guy, so we'll see what he
So
can
he'll
do with
understand
that
that.
Cardinals offense.
Yeah. And he came from
Moving
Sean
on,
McVay's
moving on to
system.
Seattle. We already talked about San Francisco. Moving on to Seattle. Actually, you know what? Yeah, we'll go with Seattle. What is your outlook for Seattle this year?
Well, I think the big question for Seattle is that they lose Johnny, and they lose
Kenneth Walker Jr.
I always want to
the
say
third.
Johnny Walker, Kenneth Walker the third to the Kansas City Chiefs, but you do have what's his name out of UCLA, the big running back, coming back.
Charbonnet.
Huh?
Charbonnet.
Charbonnet, yeah, Zach Charbonnet, thank you. Coming back, so that'll certainly help. He got 12 touchdowns for you last year. But the big question for the Seattle Seahawks is that can Sam Darnold, who didn't have the greatest Super Bowl, but was really, really good last year, has been really good the last couple of years, can he put together another season that shows him to be the much improved quarterback that he has been since he went to the Niners and played in the Kyle Shanahan system, went to Minnesota, had success there, obviously had success in Seattle last year. Can he continue to play at a top 10 level as a quarterback like he's done the last couple of years? And who's going to be the home run hitter in their offense aside from Jackson Smith and Jigba as far as a running back go with Kenneth Walker fulfilled for them last year? So running back is a question mark, and the consistency of play of Sam Darnold, especially when the games matter more and more and more, is going to be something that's looked at as well. They're loaded defensively, and Mike McDonald is a defensive ace when it comes to that side of the ball, but they don't have Clint Kubiak. So the new offensive line, or the new offensive coordinator for the Seahawks, what kind of impact is he going to have? And can Sam Darnold continue to be consistent and maybe improve a little bit above his performance in the Super Bowl? Because if they can do that, then they have a chance to get back to the Super Bowl and possibly repeat because their defense is that good.
I agree with everything you said. I think Seattle wins the division again this year, which leads us right into the Los Angeles Rams. They're the chic pick, Super Bowl or bust, and I get why.
It's hard not to.
It is. I have questions about the Rams, though. It starts up front with their offensive line. I'm not sold on that. I have questions about their quarterback. He had an MVP season last year. Didn't get to the Super Bowl. Is he due for another NBA? And is he 39, 40 with injury history? Could we expect that again from him?
He'll be the same age as Lionel Messi.
I still have questions. As great as Myles Garrett is, probably the best pass rusher in the game, has their defensive front seven, which wasn't a problem to begin with, improved that much with Garrett over Verse? I'm not sure it has. Yes, they brought in
that's the thing, though. Jalen Watson and Trent McDuffie on the back end. I mean, think about that. You had John Lamon at linebacker had a huge year last year, and Myles Garrett, a lot of people argue he's the best pure football player in the league, regardless of what position he plays, what side of the ball he plays on. So the defense ought to be top 10. I think they ought to be top 5 this year. I think the defense will be a strength for the Niners. But you have a point about Matthew Stafford. You have a point about the offensive line. Alaric Jackson having legal problems right now is probably going to be suspended. They don't have a lot of depth on the offensive line. This is why the Rams do those jumbo packages, 13 personnel, 14 personnel, which is like 4 tight ends.
Well, they have 117 tight ends on the roster.
Tight ends like offensive linemen with those big jumbo packages that they like to throw out there. If they use that a lot this year, it kind of tells you how they feel about their offensive line, their true offensive linemen in terms of their ability, to protect Matthew Stafford. But in regards to having questions about Matthew Stafford, I get that. But you know what, Jack? There's questions about every quarterback in this division. There's questions about Brock Purdy. Can he throw the deep ball outside the numbers? There's questions about Sam Darnold. Can he be consistent like he's been the last couple of years? There are people that still doubt him. I hear it on sports talk radio all the time. Can Matthew Stafford stay upright given his age? I mean, I'll tell you this. If Matthew Stafford stays upright, he's the best quarterback in the division. He's one of the best 3 quarterbacks in the NFL right now, in my opinion. So questions all you want, but ultimately there's questions about every quarterback in the NFC West. And ultimately, that doesn't necessarily mean they're going to have a failed season. If Matthew Stafford gets hurt, then the Rams are screwed effectively. But if he doesn't, he's going to get the job done, and you're going to have a great, great defense, on the front end and the back end. And you've still got Puka Nacua, Devontae Adams. You got all those tight ends, and Kyler Williams pretty good running back as well when he's not fumbling the football. So I think the Rams, if they don't win the division, it would be a major disappointment. And if they don't get to the Super Bowl and win it, I think that would be an even bigger disappointment. So
I don't think they're winning the division. I think Seattle's repeating as division champions.
They might.
I really do. I have questions about the Rams. I think they will be a playoff team. I think they'll be a 10-win team. I'm not sure whether I'm ready to give them, 11, 12, 13 wins, maybe 11, but I don't see them as a 13, 14 win team this year. That's just me. Despite all they've done, the pressure, you just said it. It's Super Bowl. It's Lombardi Trophy or bust for that organization. Nothing else matters. Nothing else matters. If they don't win the Lombardi, their season is a failure. A failure.
I would have to agree. The difference when they won the Super Bowl 5 years ago in SoFi Stadium was there wasn't exactly the outright expectation that they're going to go that far that season. This season is a little bit different. So the challenge for the Rams is one game at a time, one play at a time, pardon the cliches, but that's what it's going to be for the Rams because they have the team to get it done this year. There's no question about it. Just like Seattle and the Niners are healthy enough, they could do it as well. It's a loaded division, the NFC West, maybe the best in football. But ultimately, one game at a time and not buying into your own hype. And obviously, the health of Matthew Stafford, the health of the offensive line, and obviously that talent coming together in such a way that they're going to be an unstoppable force come playoff time.
All right. Well, that's the NFC West in a nutshell. Just my predictions. I think Seattle wins the division. I think the Rams and Niners battle it out for second
Pick the
place.
Rams to win
There,
the division,
you
assuming
know,
health of Matthew Stafford and everything like that.
so that's that. Speaking of divisions, surprisingly, we've touched on a lot more AFC divisions than we have NFC divisions. Let's skip the AFC for right now because I don't think what divisions haven't we covered? We haven't
The
talked
AFC
about
South, we haven't
the
covered the
NFC
AFC
South.
South.
I
That's
don't think
all
we've
right.
discussed the NFC North, have we?
I don't believe that we have.
I
Maybe
know we haven't
needs
discussed
to,
the
but
NFC
as far as
East.
discuss a deep discussion on the whole division, no, I don't think so.
So let's go. Let's keep it all NFC this week. Let's go to the NFC South. We'll start, because they've made news this week. We'll start with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and their impasse with Baker Mayfield. And does Baker Mayfield end up getting traded?
No, he doesn't end up getting traded. He's going to play. Here's the thing, though. It's kind of a complicated situation, but let me look at it from the Baker Mayfield angle first. I don't know if Baker Mayfield has a time management issue or just the issue of impatience, probably more of that. He says he's not going to negotiate anymore. But I think his agent has a different name. Why can't Baker Mayfield prepare for the season while his agent negotiates on his behalf and keeps him in the loop? You don't practice 24 hours a day. Cutting, like if we don't have a deal by, like all Baker Mayfield would need to do is sign the contract when he agrees to it. Then the agent does the negotiating. It's not Baker Mayfield in there negotiating, it's his agent. How many contracts have we seen that got finalized while the player was preparing for the season in training camp? It happens all the time. So while you're cutting it off, it's almost as if you're saying, well, we don't have time for this. That's where I asked about time management. Like your agent has time. He's not on the field practicing to play games this season. It's you. That's why you have an agent. So you can still negotiate your contract. So that particular deadline, I think it was a mistake by Baker Mayfield in terms of you can still get a deal done before the wins and losses portion of the season comes into play here. We're more than a month away from that. So let your agent do his job of negotiating your contract while you do your job of getting ready for the season. They're two completely different things. They're related to each other, but they're two completely different things. So that's number one. Number two, though, I think the Buccaneers, they talk about Tristan Wirfs' contract negotiation from a couple of years ago where he got $138 million, $88 million guaranteed. They off and but there was some contention about that. But I think that's a perfectly decent deal for Tristan Wirfs, to be honest with you, from a couple of years ago. He might get more now because the market keeps going up, but still, that was a decent contract for him to sign back then. But they offer Baker Mayfield 2 years, $100 million. The guarantees work right there. He should get a raise ultimately because he has been one of the leaders in touchdowns, passing yards, yards per attempt since he got to Tampa Bay. He's done a lot of winning down there, a couple of division titles, got into the playoffs, had some success there against the Eagles specifically from a couple of years ago. So I think he should get paid. But Vita Vea is not getting paid right now. A lot of
He
word
wants to
about,
be traded right now.
huh?
Vita Vea wants to be traded.
He did, yeah. He asked for a trade, and I don't know what Tampa. I mean, they let Mike Evans go. And I heard yesterday on Sports Talk Radio from Steve Hartman on Fox Sports Radio that Mike Evans took less money from the Niners than what Tampa offered him, and he left. why would you take less money if you're Mike Evans at this point in your career? And I'm wondering what's going on with Tampa with Jason Light, the general manager specifically. You have Baker Mayfield that set this deadline, to get it done by the beginning of training camp. Vita Vea wants a trade. Mike Evans took less money from the 49ers to leave and go to the West Coast to don, from pewter red to scarlet red for the Niners. So there's something going on in Tampa right now with management, maybe Jason Light, the general manager specifically, and explain all these other things. But again, I think Baker Mayfield made a mistake and ultimately should probably go back on that and say, yes, negotiate my contract while I prepare for the season. You can do both. But it could be that Baker Mayfield is digging his heels in because there's something going on with Tampa Bay management specifically, leading to Mike Evans doing what he did and Vita Vea requesting a trade. So I don't know what to make of the situation right now down in Tampa, but some bad vibes
Yeah.
around Tampa right now, and management may be part of the reason, which is weird because usually Tampa is a pretty well-run franchise under the Glazer family, but right now there's something going on down there, and I'm interested to see exactly what that is.
Um, Proverbially speaking, is Todd Bowles dead man walking down there?
Yeah, I would think so. I thought they were
I
going to
think
let
so
him go
too.
after last season, to be honest with you. So I think he and Baker Mayfield are kind of a battery. If Baker Mayfield leaves in free agency, I don't know if they're going to tag him or not, but it could be that Todd Bowles, Baker Mayfield are headed towards and I hate using this term, divorce from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and maybe the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are thinking more long term now. Which means if that's the case, then how does Baker Mayfield and Todd Bowles figure into any of that?
Are they destined for a last place finish?
No, I think they'll
No.
still contend for the division. I don't know if they're going to win the division. Carolina's getting better. I like New Orleans. I think New Orleans has got something going down there. They're kind of the dark horse sleeper of the division right now. And you can't forget what Carolina did last year. They came up, and Bryce Young got a lot better. So we'll see what
So
they do. We'll see what they do this season. But is Tampa Bay going to be last place team? I doubt it. In my mind, it might be. It could be the Saints again. We'll see, but I think they'll be improved. But I'm wondering what's going on in Atlanta right now with the quarterback situation, with the head coach,
well,
and
you
you have
mentioned
Kevin
Let's go to
Stefanski
Atlanta.
down there, obviously.
Kevin
But
Stefanski.
I don't know
You
how
know,
good they're going to be defensively, and I don't know how good they're going to be at quarterback. To be honest with you,
they have. Is Penix clear? I know they have Tua as well. Um, so Tua.
how much did they sign Tua for?
I have to look that up. I don't know the exact
I don't
amount,
think
but
if he's on a team friendly deal, I mean, it's not uncommon for a starting quarterback to be made a backup. Ideally you want Penix in there. He's younger, he's strong, he's got a stronger
yeah,
arm,
but he's
a
injury
little
prone
bit, a little
too.
bit more mobile. Maybe two is more accurate, but
But he's injury prone as well.
I
Penix. He
know,
can't walk from here to
I
there
know.
without hurting
Which
himself.
which begs the question why they brought in Tua to begin with after letting Kirk Cousins go.
Well, that's the big question with Atlanta. Can they
I think
block and keep
Atlanta
their
might be the
quarterbacks
last
upright?
place team in the NFC South, to be honest with you.
I know they have Pitts, and I know they have Drake London. I think Robinson's holding out, isn't he?
Bijan
Bijan,
Robinson,
I believe so, or holding in, or whatever the hell they call
if
it.
he's holding out or holding in, then he is like Christian McCaffrey or Jeremiah Love might be for the Cardinals this year. He is the engine that makes that offense go. I had heard anything about Bijan Robinson. He might be the number one overall pick, in the fantasy drafts this year. As far as guys that do everything on the field are great fantasy backs. Bijan Robinson will be a guy like that. So it's if he's holding out or holding in right now, that is a huge problem for the Falcons.
And what about their defense? Do we like their defense? I mean,
If they could
Stefanski's
get
not a defensive
if they
guy.
could, if they could get to the quarterback, but I don't know how well they're going. I mean, with Dallas Turner and who's on the back end, like that's always the thing with Atlanta is who's going to make the plays defensively that will allow the offense to get more opportunities. So I don't know about that right now, to be honest with you.
All right, so I think Atlanta. I don't think this is their year because they don't have an answer at quarterback. It's been said over and over again. I think Bill Parcells was the first one to say it. I think if you have two quarterbacks, you have none. When we discuss Minnesota, we can discuss the same thing when we get to the NFC North. If you have two quarterbacks, you don't have any quarterbacks. And I think that's the question in Atlanta right now. I don't know. I don't have their schedule in front of me, but they're, I'm not sure that they're going to be good enough
I,
on the defensive side
I
of the ball.
I've got the Falcons draft picks. They didn't have a first rounder this year. They traded that to the Rams, obviously, at number 13. We all saw what happened with that. But they picked up Avion Terrell, a cornerback out of Clemson, in the second round, which I think might be a decent pick. As far as defensive back go, I like him. And I think a second round pick for a guy like Avion Terrell is a good value pick. And they did bring in Samson Ebukam at defensive end along with Cameron Thomas. So they brought in some players that could potentially help the defense to be more consistent on the pass rush and defend better on the back end. But ultimately, they're going to, ultimately we'll see how good those players are in the particular system that they're going to run. But if your quarterback play doesn't pan out and Bijan Robinson misses any time whatsoever, then unless your defense is an all-time great unit, which I doubt it will be, that's going to be a huge problem. So Atlanta's offense, quarterback situation, and Bijan Robinson ability to play and be impactful every single game is ultimately going to determine how far the Falcons go.
Well, ESPN has a projected win total of 5.7 for the
Sounds like last
Falcons.
place in the
You know,
NFC South.
you know, their defense. You were asking about their back end. They have both the Terrells back there. Mike
Mm.
Hughes, Darnay Holmes, Billy Bowman Jr. At safety they got
All right, Holmes
Jesse
and safety
Bates,
is not bad, but
Xavier Watts, and Sidney Brown. And in terms of their offensive line, Chris Lindstrom's is a good player over there at right guard. They have Jake Matthews on the left
they have a
side of
good offensive
tackle,
line.
Jawan
They're
Taylor at the right tackle. So, we'll see about
Juan
Atlanta.
Taylor brings experience, but as long as he doesn't false start half the game, then that could be a good addition to the offensive line for the Falcons.
All right, let's go. Let's move up to Charlotte to Bank of America Stadium and the uh, Carolina Panthers. What do we think about Carolina? Bryce Young is back. He's got some really nice wide receivers in Tet McMillan. Led by Tet McMillan. They have Coker. They have Leggett. Um, in terms of running backs, they have Hubbard Brooks and Trevor Etienne. What do we think about the Carolina Panthers this year under Dave Canales?
I think they could win the division, actually.
Okay.
If Bryce Young continues an upward trajectory along with McMillan in the receiving core, I think they're going to put points on the board. And ultimately, they drafted Monroe Fielding, an offensive tackle out of Georgia, one of the best lineman prospects in this particular draft. And that gives Bryce Young even more protection coming from a school known for producing good offensive linemen and defensive linemen in Georgia. And then, you mentioned the receiving core. And then you got Kenny Pickett as a backup quarterback, so they have a good quarterback situation over there between the starter and the backup. So Carolina has a chance to win the division. They were very competitive playing against the Rams last year when they beat them in that particular game. And the offensive line ought to be better, adding Freeling to it. So Bryce Young has a chance to improve even more. Obviously, I'd like to see him throw the deep ball a little bit more often and take more shots down the field with a guy like McMillan. But they're sound on the offensive side. In theory, they'll be good on the defensive side. They might have had, aside from Tampa, might have had the best defense in NFC South last year, and that doesn't figure to change that much. They signed AJ Dillon as a running back on a one-year deal, so he brings in some experience coming from Green Bay, so more help in the running back core. But I like Carolina's makeup. I mean, they don't strike you as spectacular in terms of the players that they have, but they're solid and they're well coached by Dave Canales, who's got a very good offensive mind that I think Bryce Young benefited from this year. So drafting Freeling, bringing in a guy like A.J. Dillon, and have the receiving core that you have, they have a great chance to win the division, in my opinion. What about you?
I do think they have a good chance to win the division. I want to see the progression continue with Bryce Young. I think he needs to continue to progress, and I think they need their offensive line, to hold up. You can say that about any team, but I'm going to be interested to see um, how they run the ball. I mean, they have some talented receivers. Bryce Young certainly is becoming the real deal at quarterback. He needs to take another step forward. The offensive line and the defense will tell the story for Carolina.
They also signed Devin Lloyd, a linebacker, right in the middle there. He's a
Yep.
Pro Bowler and one of the better linebackers in the game, actually. So that's another good value signing in the middle of that defense with a guy like Devin Lloyd. So they did a good job in free agency in the offseason. I think they handled their draft in the right way, getting Freeling on the offensive line in the first round, Sam Hecht in the fifth round at center. So they had some depth there. But Lloyd is a very good acquisition as far as a linebacker goes. So that just bolsters what is a good defense already. But the question to your point is that will Bryce Young take that next step as a quarterback? He's certainly got the pieces around to do it.
All right, let's head down to the Big Easy in New Orleans. Tyler Shuck has a nice receiving core there with Olave and Jordan Tyson. Some decent running backs with Travis Etienne and Kamara. What do we think about New Orleans?
Can New Orleans challenge for a playoff spot? They absolutely can. One of those where, again, one of the worst of first stories. We see this in the NFL every single year. I think New Orleans has a great shot at that. Kellen Moore, very good head coach in terms of the offense. But New Orleans is going to be one of those teams that could sneak up on teams this year. That's how I'm viewing them, as a sleeper team and kind of the dark horse in the NFC South. Could they win the NFC South? I don't know if I'm going to go that far as possible, but it would not surprise me if they could crack the playoff field or contend for a playoff spot as we go through the season. If Tyler Shuck takes the next step, like Bryce Young, you want to see Tyler Shuck take the next step. He's got weapons around him. You got Chase Young on the defense, who's one of the best pass rushers in the game. They don't have Cameron Jordan anymore. And then you got Kool-Aid McKinstry, in the back as defensive back.
Cam Jordan's still there.
Huh?
Cam Jordan's still there.
Oh, he is. I thought he
Yep.
retired. Oh.
Nope, he's listed on their roster.
Well, there you go. Then I was wrong about that. I sick corrected literally. So yeah, Cam Jordan, Chase Young, there's pretty good guys on the front end of your defense to go after the quarterback. Then Kool-Aid McKinstry in the back end. We'll see about the other defensive backs that they have back there. That's probably a question mark for the defense, but I think the front seven will be solid for New Orleans. But the big question is, will Tyler Shuck, a strong arm and can move, will he take that next step as a quarterback under Kellen Moore? And I believe that he will. And if he does, then New Orleans can contend for a playoff spot and maybe the division, just because the NFC South doesn't strike you with any teams that you feel like are dominant will run away with the division. I don't think that's the case. So New Orleans is in a pretty good spot right now.
How do you like their defense under defensive coordinator Brendan Staley of LA Chargers fame?
I
Infamous.
mean, as long as Brendan Staley doesn't get to determine whether they go for it on fourth down or not from their own 20-yard line.
Well, he's the defensive coordinator. I don't think that's going to happen.
As a defensive well, I'm making a joke here because we know how he was as a head coach. But as a defensive coordinator, I think he's perfectly good. He's experienced. He knows what he's doing. Kellen Moore can focus on the offense for the most part. So I think I think he's perfectly fine as a defensive coordinator. He'll unleash that pass rush. He'll disguise the blitzes. Maybe not as well as Brian Flores does in Minnesota, but still, he knows what he's doing on that side of the ball. It's just that, thank God, it doesn't get to determine whether you go for it on fourth down from your own 20-yard line, which was a mark of him as a head coach. So as a defensive coordinator, he's very sufficient for what Kellen Moore is probably going to want to do.
Fair enough. Who wins that division?
I'm going to go with Carolina. I don't like the vibes around Tampa right now. They got some issues.
I think Tampa. I asked you that question before. I think Tampa's finishing last.
So you've got,
and I think you hit the nail on the head. I think there is I think the culture is broken down in Tampa.
It might
be. Mike Evans took less. Why did he do that? Because he wanted to get the hell out of there.
Exactly.
Vita Vea wants to get the hell out of there.
And Mike Evans.
And now, apparently, Baker Mayfield wants to get the hell out of there.
Yeah, Mike Evans is a true professional. Shows up, just gets the job done. So if he left, that is a very bad sign, because he's one of those guys, you feel like he's one of those guys that will be loyal to a team. He's not a star. He's not a diva. He just goes out and gets the job done. So if he left to take less money from the Niners, mind you, you could say, well, he wants to play a Kyle Shanahan system, and I get that. Probably has a better offensive system than Tom Bowles does. But ultimately, yeah, there's something going on in Tampa, so I don't like the vibes around them. New Orleans is a dark horse. We'll see. I think they'll be much better this year. Could contend for a playoff spot if Shuck takes the next step. I don't like the quarterback situation in Atlanta right now, even with Kevin Stefanski and tow is pretty good with quarterbacks, as we saw up in Cleveland. So that leaves Carolina. And I think Carolina has the players on both sides of the ball to win the NFC South this year and to break the Tampa Bay Buccaneers chokehold of the NFC South over the past 5 seasons, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, didn't Carolina win the division last year?
No, I think they were a wild card. I think that, or did they? I'm not sure. Hold on.
Well, while you're looking that up, question about Tampa: does Vita Vea get traded?
Hmm. It's hard in the NFL for a player to demand a trade. Does Vita Vea have the cachet,
He's one of the
to
best defensive
demand a
tackles in
trade? I mean,
football.
he's a very, very good player, but he's not a superstar. I'm going to say no. I don't think so. I think ultimately Vita Vea is going to have to play, right? Like he can't sit out an entire season.
No, I think,
He's
and I'm looking
31,
at more
so
trade
I
deadline or
think
next,
Tampa waits him out and he comes back and then maybe leaves eventually, or they give him the tag and then he'll get the average of the top 5 players in the league at his position. But I think he plays for Tampa this season. To be honest with you, what about
and
you?
you think Baker Mayfield. Here's the thing: if Tampa does have a culture problem and everybody's going to get blown out of there, which I expect. I think Light's going to be gone, and I definitely think Bowles is going to be gone. So you're kind of starting over. You have a disgruntled quarterback. Why not capitalize, whether it's now at the trade deadline,
Hmm.
and let who's
It's a
the
good point. They should field offers. They could at
you know
least kick the tires on fielding offers. I'm fielding
I
offers
mean
for it, but
even
he's
for
a big
even
part of their defense. So I think Tampa might have to be blown away with an offer if they're going to get rid of Bay. And by the way, the Panthers did win the NFC South last year, so I was wrong. It was previously 5 years in a row for the Bucks, but the Panthers broke that streak last year.
okay.
I think for Vea to get traded, I think Tampa is going to need an offer that potentially blows them away or is very, very substantial. I don't think they're going to give them away. And I know this is so to say, well, why would they give it away for nothing? I don't mean literally nothing, but a package that is competitive and that makes sense for a guy like Vita Vea, who's an impact player in the middle of the defensive line for Tampa Bay. So I don't think it's an automatic that he gets traded.
Okay. Um, and I think Mayfield, might be, might get traded as well. And that would make
Absolutely.
sense.
Although with this quarterback class coming up next year, if you trade Baker Mayfield and Via Vea, you're not going to be a playoff team, that's for sure, which means you're going to get a higher pick. So they might play that game too. A lot of different ways that Tampa can go, but right now it's just bad vibes all the way around for them.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, well, we'll see. I mean, I think someone like the Jets would jump right on it. Um, but that's just me. You know, we'll see. Um, I think they can do a lot for their future if they traded both guys. Especially to a team like the Jets, who has oodles of draft picks in the first 2 rounds. Oodles of
Baker
them.
Mayfield with the New York Jets.
You know. And who's the backup in Tampa right now? If that happened, the backup is Jake Browning.
Jake Browning?
Yeah, so
Cincinnati Bengals, Jake Browning?
yep, that's him.
He's not
Yep,
bad. It's a backup
that's him.
quarterback. You could get 3 or 4 good games out of him if you need it.
Yep.
And like
All
Jimmy
right, let's get
Garoppolo, who might go back to the Rams as a backup behind Matthew Stafford, by the way.
true.
future,
Let's
future news prediction. We'll see.
let's get to man crush and knucklehead. Who's your man crush of the week?
Luka Doncic, the Los Angeles Lakers. Is he going to be a leader? They say now with LeBron gone. He's starting to become that way because he's going to have the team out to Slovenia for a few days for practice before training camp begins, for bonding and for off the court activities and bonding. So he's stepping up as a leader already. I think he's ready to fill the leadership void. Don't confuse a guy that smiles and has the exuberance of a child on a basketball court with not being able to lead. I think he can lead in a certain way. It might be a little bit different from a Kobe Bryant maybe LeBron James. Or LeBron James could be a good time Charlie as well. Kind of a fun-loving guy, but also could be very, very intense, like Kobe. So Luka Doncic, I think, is prepared to step up as his leader all the way to having the team out to Slovenia for some team bonding before preseason practices begin for the Lakers officially speaking. So Luka Doncic is my man crush of the week.
Let's stay with Luca for a minute, and this has been asked around the national circles. It might be apples and oranges, and one might have nothing to do with the other, but they're tied at the hip, so to speak. Jalen Brunson's got his chip. Does Luca need his chip?
I think he'll get one eventually. Yeah.
Does he need one?
I mean, yes and no. He needs one in terms of, when you're a great player and you're going to be a Hall of Famer, and he will be. The championship gives that legitimacy. Unfortunately, the NBA, it's a huge rig culture, so he needs it in that regard. But does he need one to prove that he's a great player? No, because we have plenty of great players who never won a ring. Charles Barkley, Patrick Ewing, John Stockton, Karl Malone. None of them won rings. They're all Hall of Famers, so he doesn't need it for that. But he needs it ultimately for the Hall of Fame player that he will be, to mean something in certain media circles when it comes to comparing the greatest of all time versus the players that were great who didn't quite get it done. So, but I think he's going to get one eventually, anyways. I'm pretty confident about that. It's just a matter of when.
Okay. Um,
What about
my
you?
man, my man crush of the week is kind of a group effort. It is the New York Yankees starting pitching staff. They continue to go out there and they continue to put up good performance after good performance after good performance, despite the fact that they can't hit the ball. Matt Blake's done an incredible job with this staff. I think this staff, even with Skubal going to the Dodgers, I'd line the Yankees up, starting staff up against anybody. Especially if you bring a healthy Rodon back. I don't know who is still going to be there, whether they'll still have Weathers or whether they'll still have Warren or Heel or Schmidt. I mean, the Yankees have a plethora of major league ready starting pitchers, which is why I think they can really make some noise at this deadline because they don't have prospect starting pitchers, they have major league pitchers that they could send to other teams.
Yep. Well,
Which is
Warren
why I
Hen's
think
one
the
of the
Yankees
best.
really could make a killing um, if they truly choose to. Knucklehead of the week.
I've got a few choices here. I'm going to go with Tony Romo of CBS.
Yep.
I don't know what's going on with him. That like there's something going on, leading to the sketchy behavior of his. He's always been a good broadcaster from the standpoint of that he can tell you what the play is going to be before it's actually ran. He's very good at that. But when he signed a 10-year, $180 million contract a few years ago, there was one executive said it's the worst broadcast deal he's ever seen. And that could turn out to be true. He's being suspended right now, but Tony Romo, is a likable guy. He's very charismatic. He can call out a play before it's actually ran, and he's very, very relatable. But there's something going on with him, and when you get busted in an OWI, what they're calling it now, operating while intoxicated, it calls into question what is he doing in his life outside of the booth that leads to this kind of behavior. So I hope he gets the help that he needs and ultimately can return to the broadcast booth. But for right now, based on everything, Tony Romo, sadly enough, is my knucklehead of the week.
Okay. Um, my knucklehead of the week is the Detroit Tigers front office. Whether you want to talk about the Luka, whether you want to go back to the whole Shaq trade, there's just some trades that don't smell right, and this falls right in that line. Um, Baseball is probably its own worst enemy. Um, I can't figure out some of these offers. Um, I don't like what they're doing. Even the Angels. You have a guy that can reset your organization for years if you traded. Um, what's his name? Um,
Skubal or Mize?
no, Anaheim. Mike Trout.
I tried, yeah.
But instead, they're talking about trading Jared Neto and Reed Detmers. which will get you nice pieces. But I cannot figure out how and why Detroit did what they did last night for what they got back. I think this hurts other teams who are trying to trade starting pitchers because is that now the standard? You traded a two-time Cy Young winner for that? Granted, he's a rental, but that was a less than impressive haul. I don't know what Detroit's doing. I don't know if Detroit knows what Detroit's doing.
Maybe not. I got to give a shout out also to Harrison Bader. Harrison
Well,
Bader,
he's out for the year now.
a negative in terms of scooter accidents, his second one. So he didn't learn from the first time he had a scooter accident while he was playing for the University of Florida. So that's the other guy I was thinking of, besides Tony Romo. And you have a good point about the Tigers. But I remember when Harrison Bader was with the Yankees, actually, not a bad player. I liked him as the Yankees, with the Cardinals as well.
Yep.
So, but he has got to, so many guys, get in trouble off the field, doing things they know they shouldn't do, and Harrison Bader should know better. So, kind of a honorary knucklehead of the week.
All right. Final thoughts.
Will he or won't he come back? Aaron Donald. The saga continues. As a Niner fan, I'm annoyed already that he might come back because it feels like a front runner move. We've discussed this on previous podcasts. The Rams don't really need him. They got a lot of good young players down there, Braden Fisk and Byron Young and Bobby Brown Jr. and company. They don't really need him, but apparently there's going to be no word on it until the Rams return to Woodland Hills from their opening practices at Loyola Marymount, which is near Marina Del Rey and near the airport as well, kind of in that area in West LA, South Bay LA. So before they return to Woodland Hills, we'll have word on Aaron Donald then. But here's the thing. I keep hearing that Aaron Donald has the right to do all this. That's not really the issue here. We know he has the right to do all this, but the Rams also have a right to have Aaron Donald come back at the very beginning if he is going to come back because he hasn't played in 2 years. All right. He's not tired. He's not banged up. Do the math. If he, to me, he should not come back because if he needs to wait this long after everything he's done, all the workout videos, he went to the training facility. If he doesn't know by now, he should not play. And if he does come back, then this thing wasn't handled particularly well. And you put Sean McVay in a position to answer questions about it every single day. You ought to know the answer right now. There's no news regarding this. The only news with Aaron Donald at this point is he going to stay retired or is he going to come back? All this other stuff is just filling time, and there's too much time on their hands. But ultimately, Aaron Donald, if he is going to come back, probably should have done so already. Because again, he hasn't played football in 2 years, therefore he's not hurt. He's not tired, except maybe chasing his kids around the yard. As he's been a full-time father the last few years. So I don't like how this whole thing has gone. And ultimately, if he does come back, so be it. Nothing I could do about that. But to me, the situation might could have handled a little bit better, a little bit more straightforwardly than ultimately it has turned out to be, regardless of what Aaron Donald might do. Back to you, Jack.
Well, I think the whole Aaron Donald thing is window dressing. Not having played for
Well,
two
this is
years,
this isn't that type of business. It's
you
football.
know, it's a cute story, and I don't think it's much else than that. Um, Frankly, I think all Aaron Donald can do is hurt his otherwise sterling Hall of Fame reputation by coming back. I
Possibly.
don't think he's going to be a difference maker in any way.
But he has such
He,
a reputation. This is what I hate about reputations is that the reputation precedes the person. It should be the other way around, right?
well, you know what? I mean, Lawrence Taylor is the greatest defensive player to ever play the game. We could bring him back too. Yeah, it's window dressing. I mean,
Do you think he would wait until the Giants? Do they have one training facility and then go to another training facility like the Rams practice at LMU? You should practice at UC Irvine. Now that they're loyal Marymount in LA, and then they go back to Woodland Hills, which is where their main corporate office and training facilities are. So it's a weird system that they have. But then the Cowboys practice in Oxnard, every
yeah.
single season, before
Well, the
they
Giants are down
before they
in
go
the
to Dallas.
Greenbrier in West Virginia. I mean, that has a lot to do with the fact that their training facility is getting a massive overhaul and upgrade.
Sure.
But the Giants are down at are down at the Greenbrier. in West Virginia for the next couple of weeks. So
There you
we'll
go.
see about that. My final thoughts:
Practice.
football is back. The MLB trade deadline is in the next 27, 28 hours. We'll see what happens there. It's a great time to be a sports fan. We're going to take the next week off, recharge the battery a little bit, reset a little bit. When we do return in 2 weeks, we'll be looking at the NFC North, excuse me, the NFC East,
Can't wait to talk about that division.
the AFC South, and I think we still have the NFC North to do as well. But
Yes, and also baseball trade deadline.
and baseball trade deadline.
Reaction to all the trades that we're supposedly going to see over the next couple of days here.
Yep. So with that, the living room is closing for 2 weeks. We will see you in 2 weeks. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll be back. Have a great weekend, everyone.